All right, fifth graders, we're here for chapter 17 of One Crazy Summer. But before we start, let's recap chapter 16. Here's what we know so far. Delphine continues in that motherly role that we were talking about as she makes the food for her sisters, stepping in where Cecile cannot. We also know that Cecile continues to be cold and unkind, but she does manage to let Delphine into her kitchen, which we know is that coveted workspace that she doesn't really let anyone go into. And last, we know that also Vanetta doesn't seem to feel any guilt for her actions with Miss Patty. Um, so there's like a signal, sort of like a rift between the sisters. All right, so let's think about our lens before we start. As we read, we know we were always going to be wanting to pay attention to the characters, their traits, relationships, the point of view of the narrator, as well as any themes that we might notice coming across in the text, and any changes that take place, whether it's with the characters, the plot, or the setting, or even the lesson. All right, so here we go. China Who, Chapter 17. Sister Makumbu gave Eunice, Hirohito, and me 2 empty milk cartons, each to fill with water from the hallway fountain. Today our class was to take sponges that she and Sister Pat had cut up into different shapes and make printed designs on old t-shirts. We'd use red, black, and green paint, the same colors as the ink Cecile used for her poems, and whatever flyers the Panthers asked her to print up. As Sister Makumbu readied the paints, I thought of all those colors dripping and splattering on Vanetta's and Fern's clothes, and having to scrub them without a washboard. Don't start anything until I get back with the water, I told Fern. Fern seemed off in a world of her own. Sister Makumbu clapped her hands, pressing for me to get going. Fern would be all right for 2 minutes without me. I followed Eunice and Hirohito with a mind to hurry back. I had to admit I liked being seen as one of the classroom helpers. Vanetta and Janice were put out by the fact that they weren't asked to take a skip down the hall with Hirohito. They had both raised their hands to ask if they could help too. Although I didn't like Eunice much, we glanced at each other and knew the same thing. Our middle sisters were boy crazy for Hirohito. He was probably 12 or 13 and only saw Vanetta and Janice as pests that he could both mess with and keep at a distance. Huh. This seems a little bit important here. This seems to be an important moment that distinguishes Delphine and Eunice as similar, sort of, in their roles as big sisters. Maybe something of like a friendship will grow from this? I'm going to keep that in mind as I read on. Hirohito beat us to the fountain. As he filled up his cartons, I studied every feature of his face. I wanted to ask him how it felt to have slanted eyes, hair like pine needles, and coppery colored skin. Which one was he more, Chinese or colored? If I were Vanetta, I would have at least asked him that, as much as she's always in his face. I would have asked him something interesting instead of, do you like short girls or tall girls? I guess that's the kind of thing that Vanetta asks. I knew my curiosity didn't excuse my staring or me wanting to pry. After all, I certainly didn't like questions about not having a mother. So I scolded myself good while Hirohito filled up his second carton. I could keep my curiosity to myself. I should not stare at his long black eyelashes and coppery-colored skin. Besides, I couldn't go from planning to sock him to asking him about being a colored Chinese boy or in one good blink. But before I had a chance to look away, he caught me staring at him. What? I gave it back. Did I say something to you? Thank goodness you can't see cherries in a chocolate bar. I'd have had been red-faced rose if not for my Hershey brown complexion. Take a picture, it lasts longer. I was not looking at you, boy. Girl pride made me lie hard and strong. Eunice gave me a word too glare, but I couldn't let this boy think I was staring at him, even if he caught me red-faced beneath my brown skin. I couldn't let this boy with slanted eyes and copper-colored skin think that I thought a thing about him, because I didn't. And if you try to run me and my sisters off the sidewalk with that skateboard, I'm going to stomp on you good. Oh, this scene here shows Delphine's inner thoughts and her struggle, kind of, like between, she sort of likes Hirohito, but she doesn't want to show it. She's really thinking hard about, like, being embarrassed about saying these things, but she doesn't say them really out loud. She just gives him sass. Sassy phrases keep coming out of her. I wonder if he knows that she actually kind of likes him. So she said that mean thing about the skateboard. We were about the same height, but I hadn't met a boy I couldn't throw down to the ground. But then I was taller than all the boys that I knew. I yelled for you to get out of the way. Can I help it if you're slow? That was Hirohito talking. He was no Ellis, Carter, Anthony, or other boys who tapped me from behind and ran. He spoke calmly, with no fear of my boy-throwing abilities. Well, you shouldn't be skateboarding where people walk. Girl, that's no skateboard, he said, full of what I guessed was boy pride. That's my go-kart. Who cares, China boy? He gave me a look like he was going to drop both cartons and put up his dukes. One eyebrow went up. China who? I was glad he said that because my China you shot out right on time. He said, China who? And she said, China you. Eunice jumped in and said, for your information, he's black and Japanese. Can't you tell the difference between a Japanese name and a Chinese name? Ugh, I didn't like having my ignorance shoved at me, especially by the likes of Eunice Angton. But there I was, not knowing a half Chinese face from a half Japanese one. I wasn't about to get a better look, so I'd know the difference. Looking at that stupid boy got me red-faced. Oof, this is a problem, sort of. Delphine seems to often get in some trouble on account of her, quick and slap-back words. She seems to, clap back often. We know, though, that her words don't always represent her true thoughts or feelings. Could this kind of a flaw maybe get her into future trouble? I'm kind of wondering that. I'm going to keep that tucked away as we read on. She had said, looking at that stupid boy got me red-faced in the first place. The last thing I'd do was own up to my own ignorance and then apologize. I turned to Eunice as if Hirohito weren't there. I don't care what he is. He just better watch out when he's riding that skateboard on the sidewalk. Hirohito turned to start walking back to the classroom. Go-kart. I said, forget you, Hirohito. He said, forget you, Delphine. And then I said quickly to get the last lick, never thought about you. Eunice said, is that what you all say where you come from? That's so corny. For Eunice's information, there was more to that rhyme. There was swallow a snake, jump in the lake, come back home with a bellyache. It did sound corny, so I kept it to myself. I don't care. She walked ahead of me. If you knew about Hirohito and Brother Woods, you'd leave him alone. Ooh, that's interesting. Then I got suckered into a schoolyard comeback I should have seen coming. What about Hirohito and Brother Woods? Wouldn't you know it? Eunice had hips. She made sure I knew that fact as she walked ahead of me. That's for me to know and you to find out. Ooh, this is a cliffhanger for sure right here. Now we're really wondering what it could be that happened between Hirohito, Brother Woods, and this is just really, making us wonder what happened there. I'm thinking Eunice is the key to unlocking that mystery. So Delphine better get her friend on. She better get closer to Eunice if she wants to learn that. And before we go here, there's an interesting tip. The name Hirohito was also the name of the Japanese emperor, the leader of Japan at this time. Who he was the ruler from 1907 to 1980 something. So during the 1960s, he was the ruler. So did the author name this character purposefully? Does that mean something that this character Hirohito is also the name of the ruler or the leader of Japan at the time? Does that indicate strength of some sort? We'll have to see. So just to recap, in China Who, the chapter, let's summarize. Who was in this chapter and what new things did we learn about them? Well, it was the same characters as usual with the sisters, but also there was Eunice kind of jumped in this chapter a little bit more. Her and Delphine started to create a little bit of a friendship there in their role as the big sister. And so also we learned that Delphine kind of seems to be on this kick where she sort of likes Hirohito, but she also likes to be mean to him at the same time. That's something new. What seems important, or what are we learning about the problem? We learned that, there's this thing that happened with Hirohito and Brother Woods. We don't know who that really is yet, but we know that that's something that maybe we were teased about learning about in the future. How does this chapter connect to what we read earlier? Well, we know that the thing that happened with Vanetta and how she messed up Miss Patty, that's sort of a rift that's continuing with the sisters there. We know that Delphine has always been this mother figure, but she's sort of branching out a little bit more. Maybe she's going to become a friend with this Eunice character. That kind of connects to earlier when we've heard about Eunice being the bigger sister to her siblings. And I guess all of this connects to their time at the Black Panther camp. This is just another moment where they're working on those, what did it say? They were working on t-shirts. They're always kind of working towards this cause to try to fight for equality here in Oakland, something that the sisters didn't really know they were getting into when they came here. All right, so the question for today is when she said, I don't care what he is, he just better watch where he's going when he's riding his skateboard on the sidewalk. What did that phrase actually suggest about Delphine and her feelings for Hirohito? What are we thinking there? Use two details from the text to support your response. Think about when she says those kind of fast quips about Hirohito, what does that phrase really suggest about Delphine and her feelings for him? All right, boys and girls, we'll continue with chapter 18 next time. Hope you enjoyed.